today. Put some respect on Josh Hokit's name. Put some respect on Curtis Razor Blaydes' name. And put some respect on Carlos Black Jag Ulberg's name. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt and Vito Corleone. And we are here to talk about UFC 327. But I'm going to dive right... This video, I'm only going to focus on a couple of the main takeaways, or the main course, the steak, if you will, the ribeye, you know what I'm saying, the porterhouse, if you will, of UFC 327. And frankly, I'm not even going to start at the top. I'm going to start with Josh Hokit versus Curtis Razor Blaydes, because we may have witnessed what might go down as the greatest heavyweight fight of all time in the UFC. In my opinion, only rivaled by Mark Hunt and Bigfoot Silva, and I don't know, because these dudes had way more volume and they was really throwing. With that being said, UFC 327, it went down in Miami, Florida. Donald Trump was in the house. You know what I'm saying? Dana White was front and center with him. All the kids, Ivanka and everybody, Trump Jr., they was all there. They was all there. But, man, UFC 327, a fight that was made it's kind of a wonky fight, was kind of weird, like it wasn't a fight anybody was asking for. Nobody really knew why one man would take it because he's so high in the rankings. The other guy is only on like his third fight in the UFC, but it came about and we kind of glossed over it, and it was Josh Hokit versus Curtis Razor Blaydes. Now, as we got closer to this fight, Josh Hokit is always doing his online shenanigans and things like that. And he's a wild character. You know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of Kobe Covington splashed in there. Not much, because he doesn't go that low. Excuse me. There's definitely some Chael Sonnen in there. There's a couple of comedians thrown up in there, wrapped up in a bow. But man, Josh Hokit had been trying to make a name for himself online doing this wild-ish, right? With that being said, Curtis Blaydes is not known to participate in the chitter-chatter, in the wildness. He's not known to do that. That ain't his forte. And he made that clear he wasn't going to participate. So then we have fight week and Josh Hokit is going out on a limb. He's saying wild things. He's going against different groups of people, different races, creeds, sexuality. He's going against a lot of it, right? But he's trying to really push himself to the forefront of this UFC fight card of UFC 327, right? What's so interesting about this is that what actually pushed him to the forefront and made him maybe him and Curtis Razor Blaydes, not taking nothing away from Curtis Blaydes, what made both of them probably the main takeaway or talking point outside of the injury in the main event was their fight. Was these two dudes going in the octagon, throwing out all technique, throwing out all intricate skill, and just saying, look, we don't like each other and we about to throw down. And that's what we saw. It was a, look, you bumped into me, I bumped into you, and neither one of us can stand that, so we got to go at it. It was a, man, these retro Jordan 4s, and you just stepped on them, my dude. And I'm going to need 5 minutes. I got to take it from you. And that's what it was, bro. These two threw down. And what was so interesting about it is the real clash of styles wasn't just the fight style of being a stand-up smaller man with speed and skilled hands versus more of a wrestler, huge guy, outweighed Josh Hokit by like a little bit over maybe 30 pounds or so, and just heavy shots, but primarily being a very good technical wrestler and knowing how to mix it up on the feet. But the actual clash between these two outside of that was Josh Hokit attacking Curtis Blaydes verbally, gesturing toward him. He gave him plenty of fingers to kick off the fight, and as the fight would go on, and trying to get Curtis Blaydes emotional in the sense of angry, and possibly getting him to abandon his game plan, which is heavily centered around grappling and wrestling. And if that was going to take place, and that was exactly what took place. Early on in that first round, I mean, Josh Hokit was already giving the man the finger before the fight started. When the fight started, Josh Hokit goes at him aggressively, throwing shots, and Curtis Blaydes weathered that first small storm and tried to implement his grappling. He tried to implement his wrestling. But what makes Josh Hokit so dangerous, and this is what we're all realizing, besides the fact that he's beyond a junkyard dog, this is a back alley street dog. You know what I'm saying? This is different because a junkyard dog, he gets a meal from time to time from the dudes that run the junkyard. We talking about a dog that's a stray. He's on the streets. He's on the back alleys. He's down by the docks. You know what I'm saying? If you got docks in your city, that's where he at. You know what I'm saying? He's in the factory district where they only hire the felons in your city. That's where this dog that Josh Hokit, it was born. That's where he lives. He has to fight for a meal. Ain't nobody putting out a metal tin bowl and putting him some kibbles and bits in it. Josh Hokit out here scrapping for his food, right? But also, this man has some wrestling ability, which we've kind of known. We hadn't really necessarily seen it implemented completely. We kind of knew this, but we saw it on display. And that little bit of knowledge of wrestling allowed him to keep from getting pinned to the ground by Curtis Blaydes and allowing Curtis Blaydes to win the rounds on points. And what ended up happening is, whether it was the constant flashing of the bird in his face, the finger in his face to Curtis Blaydes, or if it was just the fact that the pride was challenged and Curtis Blaydes refused to submit or succumb to Josh Hokit, Curtis Blaydes abandoned the grappling and wrestling and decided he was going to also throw hands with Josh Hokit. And so what we saw was a smaller man with more speed, able to fire off more shots, multiple straight jabs, multiple straight punches, looping punches, uppercuts. We saw a smaller man with more speed and a little bit more skilled on the feet, throwing hands, throwing lunchbox fists at a man who is 30 pounds heavier, much taller, much wider, bigger frame, a true heavyweight frame, because Josh could probably make his way down to light heavyweight, but we don't want to see that. This is the best Josh Hokit, because he might not be able to take them shots if he goes down to light heavyweight, you know what I'm saying? But we saw him in there against Curtis Blaydes, and Curtis Blaydes let those hands go. And Josh Hokit has a chin on him. He's got a chin on him, and shout out to Curtis Blaydes, who took shot after shot after shot and never was knocked out, of course. Because this, I'm just going to get right to it. This match went to a 3-round decision that went to Josh Hokit. But what you saw here was two men, one man trying to make a name and make a splash in the sport, right? Trying to be noticed, who refused to relinquish against an already known heavyweight that a lot of people have written off multiple times, And Josh Hokit was willing to put it all on the line, and Curtis Blaydes was willing to put it all on the line and say, y'all thought I was just a wrestler. Y'all thought that I couldn't strike. Y'all thought that my chin was gone. A lot of y'all questioned my toughness, and Curtis Blaydes was willing to go in there, throw hands with Josh Hokit, and throw down. Back and forth this went for 3 rounds. We saw, you saw Josh Hokit wobbled, not to the severity that you saw Curtis Blaydes, but you never saw him dropped. You saw Curtis Blaydes get rocked multiple times, and in my opinion, I think that's what lost him the fight, because it was only more toward maybe about the 3rd round that Josh was really stunted with some shots, but he wasn't quite as visibly rocked as when Curtis Blaydes was stunted with some of those shots. Also, if Josh Hokit was a little bit taller, if he was just a little bit taller, slightly bigger frame, but could still have the same ferocity and speed that he already has, who's going to beat that man at heavyweight? After he's already beaten a wrestler like Razor Blaydes, like Curtis Blaydes, who's going to beat that man at heavyweight? Their only chance is his size. And the fact of the matter is, shout out to Curtis Blaydes for taking all those shots, but if Josh Hokit had some more size on him, it's a closer size to Curtis Blaydes, Curtis Blaydes' head would have flew out of the octagon into the front row right in Ivanka Trump's lap. You know what I'm saying? That's what would have happened. You know what I'm saying? That's what would have happened, bro. Because Josh Hokit was putting a beating on this man, but Curtis Blaydes was game. And pun intended, this fight was razor close, in my opinion, when it went to the scorecards. But I kind of gave the win to Josh Hokit based out of the damage and the visible damage. Curtis Blaydes' face, at one point, I'm watching this fight with my wife, and I tell her, Curtis Blaydes' face, no disrespect to the man, I'm just saying from the damage that he had, he looked like he's the real Bigfoot Silva. He looked like a full-blown bloody Sasquatch in the octagon. You know what I'm saying? Like he's fresh out of the forest lands. You know what I'm saying? Right in the octagon, throwing down. Man, amazing fight, back and forth. What a war. And what legacy building that both men did. You know, what legacy building that both men accomplished in that fight. This will go down probably as Curtis Blaydes' best fight, most exciting fight, and most talked about fight out of all of his fights. You know what I'm saying? Outside of when Francis Ngannou put him on a poster, this is it. And this is in Curtis Blaydes' favor. While he lost this fight, he did not lose in the eyes of the fans. And I'm sure the matchmakers will attempt to take care of him as much as they can in a devastated division like the UFC heavyweight division. On Josh Hokit's side, this was everything he could have asked for. This put him right in the forefront of all MMA fans that witnessed this fight or are hearing about this fight, because this was a back and forth bloody war with both men completely gassed. The gas tank was drained. The fumes had already been used. You know what I'm saying? It was just sparking in the engine. And they still kept pushing forward. This was everything Josh Hokit wanted and needed. Because not only did he win this fight, not only did he pivot in his post-fight speech and didn't go full-blown cringe like he had done all fight week, and he just kept it to a nice rhyme, kept it simple, and captured the heart of the fans that were hating on him earlier in the week. But also, this guaranteed him a fight on the UFC White House card against the Black Beast Derek Lewis, which is going to be another throwdown. Probably won't last as long, might not be as action-packed as what he just went through, because how many fights can you have like that in your career, honestly? But still, Josh Hokit is right in the forefront where he wants to be from an entertaining standpoint. Not a skill standpoint, but an entertaining standpoint of the heavyweight division. He ain't gonna get a heavyweight title shot or nothing like that. He even called out Alex Pereira. I mean, this dude knows what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? If there's a good chance Pereira's going to become the interim heavyweight champ, you might as well link yourself to his name. You know what I mean? He ain't going to get a title shot by no means. But still, bro, outstanding on both men. And as a lot of people have mentioned, this might have got them both in the Hall of Fame. This is like dude's third or fourth fight in the UFC. Dude being Josh Hokit, and he might be a Hall of Famer because this will probably get one of those Hall of Fame nods in a year or two and put him and Curtis Blaydes in the Hall of Fame. And Curtis Blaydes has never been able to realize his dream of being the heavyweight champion, but he has now realized a dream, if it ever was his dream, and he will go down as being a UFC Hall of Famer because of this fight with Josh Hokit. They'll definitely put this fight in the fighting wing of the Hall of Fame. Shout out to both men. Josh Hokit is your winner. Let's move on. The only other fight I'm going to discuss in this video, and I'm going to have another video where we're going to talk about another few key takeaway points, is I got to talk about my guy, Paulo Costa. That's right, I picked Josh Hokit to beat Curtis Blaydes, and y'all thought I was joking. Y'all thought I was smoking. Y'all thought I was doing a lot of things, but Josh Hokit won, and I also said Paulo Costa was going to go out there and win this fight if he was shades of his last fight at middleweight. But I'm not even going to get into that right now. Let's talk about the new light heavyweight champion of the world, Carlos Ulberg. I'm going to make this fast. This fight ends due to TKO stoppage in the first round. Carlos Ulberg, I'm not sure if he tore his ACL. He said he blew his knee out. I'm not sure what went wrong, but he was a one-legged man early on in the first round. But the TKO stoppage was not for Carlos Ulberg. It was for Jiri Prochazka, because I think, as much of a fan of Jiri Prochazka as I am, and he is a true berserker, this is the other side of the coin with Jiri Prochazka's fighting style. He's not washed. He's not cooked. This is just the other side of the coin. When you have that awkward movement that Jiri does, with hands down, relying completely on his reflexes. When you have that, and then you have a sniper. Like I said in my video, I picked Jiri to win, but I said if Carlos does it, it's because he's a sniper, and he will snipe Jiri Prochazka. And he did that, and he did that with a check hook on one leg. And so what we have here is, while Carlos Ulberg is fighting Jiri Prochazka in the first round, he takes an awkward step back, and it looked like he either tore his ACL or blew his knee out on, I don't know, from the footage it looked like it was his right leg, but Jiri was going against the left leg. So I'm not really sure which leg it was. I need to go back and watch it. But nevertheless, man, Carlos Ulberg tears something in one of his legs. It's quite clear. He kind of staggers. He stumbles back. At one point, he hit the ground. He got right back up, bro. And then at that moment, Jiri sort of teed off slightly on the feet. But I know there's a question of this narrative presented by Joe Rogan. Did Jiri Prochazka have a mercy, have a pause moment, show compassion, or have pity for Carlos Ulberg when he realized his leg was compromised? Did he slow it up? Did he take his foot off the gas? Did he take his mind off of the game plan and take that L? In my opinion, what I saw in real time is, I believe, what I actually said in my living room on my couch is, I said, man, Jiri is slowing up. Like, he's not, just go in and kill him. Go in and finish him. You know what I'm saying? Go in and unalive this dude. But he seems to be not doing that. He kind of waited, and he was kind of taunting Carlos in a way. But it looked as if He was almost upset that he wasn't going to get this stand-up challenge or war that he thought he was going to have with Carlos Ulberg. Mixed with, he was taking a little bit of pity on Carlos Ulberg having one leg. Because that's just what I said right there in real time. As I told my wife, I'm like, he's not, what is he doing? He's not going in for the kill. The man is donezo. He's got one leg. This is your moment. Now, he did continue to land leg kicks, but with that being said, he would pause and throw it on the feet, and when that wasn't working, it was almost a hesitation of, I should throw another leg kick, but I don't know. With all of that being said, though, I'm not going to take nothing away from what Carlos Ulberg accomplished, because he stayed cool and calm under fire. You got to understand what this man is thinking. This is his shot. I believe he's about 36 or 37 years old, maybe 36. He's not the youngest cat in the light heavyweight division. This is his one shot. He's not really a fan favorite. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have like an American fan base at all. This is his one shot. If he takes an L here, Khamzat Chimaev is coming up to this division and he's ready to do work. So there's a good chance he might never get this shot again. And his leg, whether it's his knee or his Achilles tears, something went wrong. And he stayed calm. He stayed in the game. He continued. He had already been throwing that left check hook already. Earlier in the fight, even one of the commentators remarked about that. It might have been DC. He was already throwing that punch, so that was his game plan, and it was clear to see that was gonna probably work. We didn't know he was gonna finish Jiri or knock him out or win the fight, but it was clear to see that hook was so close to landing multiple times in the short amount of time that this fight was going on that you're like, if he nails him, that's going to be the shot. That was going to be the shot. With that being said, he stayed calm under pressure. He stuck to the game plan, and he caught Jiri with that check hook. And dude, Jiri falls flat. He's on his knees on the ground. He's spinning. He's kind of off. And Carlos Ulberg delivers the final shots on one leg, finishes him. We have a new light heavyweight champion of the world. Amazing. Amazing. Amazing to see. With all of that being said, what a terrible outcome for the UFC if they're going to continue to try to find contenders from only the light heavyweight division. Because Carlos won, and that's not really the problem. But depending on how severe this injury is, he's at least probably not going to fight at all for the rest of this year. So we're not going to see him fight again until 2027. And then it puts us in a situation of, will the UFC allow him to hang on to the title? Because they claim they got Jiri to use his Bushido spirit and give up the belt when he messed up his shoulder. But a lot of people believe that the UFC kind of told him, bro, we're going to have to vacate this and we'll give you the first crack at it when you come back. Does the UFC let Carlos Ulberg keep the championship, or do they strip him of that? That's going to be very interesting, because there's not a lot of other movement they can do, especially who's really trying to see Jiri get another title shot right now, and I'm a Jiri fan. So with that being said, that kind of messes up things if they're only trying to keep things moving in the current light heavyweight division as it pertains to the title. Because at this point, who are you really from the current division? I mean, what, you gonna throw Ankalaev in there? What, you gonna throw Jiri in there again? I know they haven't fought yet, but there's not a lot of guys right there. But there is one man off in the distance, on the horizon. And you got to pull out your binoculars, really adjust them to take a look. But he's on the horizon. And while he already has another fight that he has to make it through, there is always something brewing. And then as you adjust your gaze and you make out what that is, that's when you hear that blood-curdling wolf's howl. Because it's the wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, who has made it clear he wants to go up to 205 pounds and challenge for the championship. He almost had a fight ink with Pereira in order to do that. And if the UFC is choosing to pivot there, regardless of the outcome of the middleweight title fight, regardless of the outcome, of the middleweight title fight with Sean Strickland, if the UFC is looking to use Khamzat Chimaev in the light heavyweight title picture, then this might have been more to their liking. Because they can throw Khamzat in there with Ankalaev and make an interim shot. They can throw him in there with Jiri Prochazka. I don't feel like Jiri should get any more title shots without getting some wins in the meantime. So maybe Jiri goes out there and fights someone, a few months after the middleweight title fight, gives Khamzat a chance to recover. Maybe Jiri beats somebody else. Maybe he beats Ankalaev, and then it would kind of doesn't make complete sense, but at least he beat a top contender. But you never know. The UFC in this Paramount Entertainment era might tell Black Jag. They might let him know, look, dude, you're going to get the first title shot when you're healed up and you come back. We're going to slide you a little money under the table. Don't tell nobody, because we don't want to do it for nobody else, because we cheap and our pockets is tight. But we'll slide you a little bit of money. We'll get you the best care, the best medical care, rehab, and everything to get you back. But we're going to have to take that belt. And they might do some sort of an interim shot at the very end of the year, one of the big December cards to close out the year, and throw Khamzat Chimaev in there. You never know. But shout out to Carlos Ulberg. Shout out, even though he took a L, shout out to Jiri Prochazka. My heart goes out to the dude. He's about to have a child born, I believe a daughter. He's probably thinking he's in the prime of his life. This is the moment. He's going to go out there and capture the championship and become a new father. And not only did he take a loss, but he took a loss in which he might have been able to avoid if he just went in for the kill. One could argue that if he just went right in, he still might have got caught by that check hook. But at the same time, I believe the key was, don't even worry about landing anything on the feet. Don't even worry about landing your hands on Carlos Ulberg. Just work over whichever leg, the bad leg, the good leg, whatever, because he was a one-legged man in an A-kicking contest, and he won that. So shout out to Jiri Prochazka. You'll be back in there, my dude. It ain't the end. And shout out to Carlos Ulberg, the new light heavyweight champion of the world. Outstanding. Great card. Great. What a run the UFC has been on. We've been clowning them because they won't make the big, good fights that we want to see. But what they have delivered with all of these random, fresh off the Contender Series fighters is they have delivered a lot of action. And you have to give them that. Over the course of the last, 4 cards, they've been action-packed. So shout out to all of them. Shout out to you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.